We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner. I got to go bold, right? I got to go bold for this.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're out there on YouTube, and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. What's going on today? We are going to be breaking down what just happened, right, with the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. But then at the very end, I kind of want to talk about what to expect throughout the week, right? It's a confusing time for us Bears fans. So what can we expect during this week? And also, I want to hear from you, the fans, just kind of checking in with the fan pulse out there on YouTube. Are we feeling a teardown, a new QB, a new offensive coordinator, running it back? I really just want to feel like, what are the overall vibes that we have out there as Chicago Bears fans? Because I will tell you this too, and I have a pretty fun announcement. I'm still figuring out all the logistics through this, but if you follow us out on YouTube or anything like that, and also if you followed us on the podcast platform too, you know that we do I feel like we do some of the best draft coverage. And something that I want to announce is that we will also be having a draft guide. So all the different stuff that you see out there describing the breakdowns, like all the graphics that we have out there, I'm figuring out a way to get it to you guys, the people. I'll have more details about that later, but in a down day where the Bears just got whooped, we'll be able to kind of go through that and have an actual full-blown draft guide, all about the Bears stuff that you can get. So I'll have more details slightly later on, just compiling it all together since it is the last game of the season. But also, Bears finish out 7-10. Let's get this show on the road, shall we? And let's talk about this game recap, because it wasn't pretty, right? And we already have Chris out there. Fire gets he now. K down saying we need a new staff. We'll break that down, right? Like, we feel this anger towards this staff that we do have. But let's flip over to the content. Let me break down the stats a little bit. So obviously the Bears lose 9-17 to the Green Bay Packers. Justin Fields throws for 148 yards, 11 completions 16 attempts, 11 completions, 148 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked 5 times. Also, the running attack did not get going. Only 3 yards a carry for the Bears running attack. Khalil Herbert only averaged 2.3 yards a carry. Then you look at the receiving. DJ Moore, 64 yards on 4 receptions and had 6 targets. Then Cole Kmet, who you could tell he was just banged up, 3 catches, 41 yards. And on the defense, and actually on the defensive side of the ball, we let Jordan Love throw 316 yards on us, and then Aaron Jones ran for 111 yards, averaging 5 yards a carry. But on the defensive side of the football, not too much. DeMarcus Walker got the 1 sack for the Bears, but then TJ Edwards, 10 tackles, Tremaine Edmonds, 9, and Brisker with 8. So, where do we start? Where do we start with this game? Because this game was not fun. It wasn't fun for any of us. I'm texting my Packer fan friends. I live in Wisconsin. Most of you know that. So I'm texting them, and I'm kind of talking smack. In the morning, I'm saying good morning. Hope the kids are okay. F you, or F the Packers, right? But this was just a gross game. And I think for it, I kind of want to start out on the defense, because I really want to highlight just the defense was really bad. And this has been what has been holding our defense together and this team together. And to allow 316 passing yards from Jordan Love. I'm getting text messages from Packer fans saying, how does it feel that we have our quarterback again? Right? I hate getting those. I feel like a lot of us are probably getting that too if we have a lot of friends that are Packer fans. They're feeling good because their guy just threw 27 of 32 on this defense. That was one of the top defenses in the league, and statistically was the best defense in the league since week 5. And they just absolutely destroyed us. They could run it on us. They could pass it on us. This defense was just hard to swallow. It was very, very hard to swallow. But I think, too, on the offensive side of the football, something that really baffled me. how can they stop the run against us? Because they always seem like they can. We broke it down in the preview that the Bears can run the football and the Packers can't stop the run. And now here we go again. The Bears only get 2.3 yards with Khalil Herbert. For some reason, they can lock that down. And yes, we had injuries, Dan Feeney and Lucas Patrick. That can affect it with a center going down, even though that Lucas Patrick is a human turnstile. Even though that there was that, and even though that Nate Davis, who has struggled, was not out there, and Cody Whitehair, for all intents and purposes, did not play a bad game. There's other people that will break it down that played far worse games than Cody Whitehair or a Dan Feeney did play. But it was just a gross game. And I know that there was some calls out there like Justin Fields getting smacked again. I am one where some of those Justin Fields hits, I thought, okay, we're just being Bears fans, right? Like a small percentage of those. But a lot of those, it's like, okay, they should have thrown a flag. Okay, they should have thrown a flag. The fact they did not throw a flag on that, when the safety was loading up, he was loading up his shoulder, getting ready to smack him. Sorry, it was just frustrating to see something like that go down and not a flag be thrown. And I believe I saw the stat that not a single flag has been thrown on Justin Fields getting hit late. And I think that's just not a single one. Why is that? Right? Why is that? Because he's big? Because he runs fast? Why? It's just a frustrating entire piece. But really, this game, kind of want to turn the page on it. Let me see what we have out there in the comments. Yeah, K-Down, Fields' last 7 games were extremely better than all games in the Bears uniforms. It was so much fun to watch. Broski, what's up? I have not seen Broski Bear in so long. How are you doing, my friend? Yeah, and Broski saying, so glad it was Fields' last game. So bold take out there, but also Electric saying Getsy is the problem, and he will be for Justin or whoever the QB is next season. And then K Down also saying if we move on from him, the next quarterback have us in the conference championship game year 2. Like, it could. I feel like this is good, right? I think that this is good. And also, yeah, Broski's saying stop with the defense is really bad. The offense is really bad. Packers, that is a good point. 17 points the Bears did give up. The only thing that I'll say about that is they allowed a lot of drives. And I actually want to pull up the play-by-play real quick on this just to kind of have that up, because it seemed like every single drive that they had was all the drives that the Packers had were going like past midfield, because the first drive they missed the field goal, so they made it past the 50-yard line. Then they had a touchdown. Then they had that really weird at the end of the first half where they made it past, but then ultimately didn't capitalize, scored a touchdown. Then they had a fumble that could have been a first down and went past, then field goal, and then essentially move it past. So that's where I'm at least. Like, even though that they allowed for 17 points, it was still, they were always able to kind of just drive on the Bears. And there wasn't that 3 and out or even just one drive that they weren't out there. So that was one of my big pieces, one of my big frustrations just with this team. But let's go over to studs and duds, right? This is the last studs and duds that we're going to have for the season. Let's break this down. Let's start out with the defense. Who were your studs and duds for this defense? Did you have anything, right? Did you have anybody that is technically a stud or a dud? But let's break this down, because my stud, I'm going to give it to Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson not being out there. I think that Jalen Johnson just made himself a boatload of money today. And I think that, like Smith on the touchdown, it was a bad view for him, right? He gave up that touchdown and didn't look good. But I thought, on first glance, it wasn't a terrible game, so to speak. But you see just the impact of Jalen Johnson and just how he breathes this new life into this team. And he is the lifeblood of the defense, as it says right here. I really did feel like he just felt like he was really kind of bringing everything together and played, and like he brings everybody together, and you just didn't see it out there today. The only other person that I will say that actually played, that I thought played pretty well, at least in the first half, TJ Edwards was flying around as he always does, and he's making plays. So that was somebody who really did impress me, that it seemed like at least Edwards, from people that were playing, was making somewhat of a big impact. We got Dobbsy saying Stevenson, and then Dobbsy's stud. Where did the rush defense go? Because that's where my dud is. I don't know who the official stud goes to, but I'd say this run defense. I agree with Dobbsy with this, and I want to say it's probably more so up front, maybe because it just felt like that this defense was not doing well, right? I'll just give it to Eberflus. I'll give Eberflus the dud because the defense was allowing some of the yards out there. I can't really pinpoint to one particular person on this defense. It just felt like the unit itself was not playing the way that they typically did and typically gelled. So that was one of my big pieces, that it just felt a little uneven. It just didn't feel great. But also, Broski saying Jalen Johnson isn't worth giving a big contract to. Stevenson, Gordon, Smith, Bears are going to draft another cornerback. I disagree, Brad. Bears would be foolish to give so much money to JJ. I think that this is going to be a very interesting point, because I do see your point, Broski, because I think for me there's that line, right? There's that line of what is he worth? Because he has this one elite best cornerback of the league. I don't think that you should reset the market with him and pay him all that extra money, because if that's what he's asking for, I'd say you tag him, you keep him a year, and if he still feels that way, right, have him play out another year and see how it goes, because it's going to be an interesting situation, to say the least, with that, I'd definitely say. But let's go over to this offense. Let's talk about studs and duds for this offense. I'm actually excited to start talking about next year. I'll be honest with y'all right now. But let's talk about the studs and duds for this offense. And I have a clear dud. I think that there's a lot of duds on this offense, but this is someone who is one of the best guards in the league. And he's going to be looking for a new contract, not this offseason, but next offseason. I hate saying this, but everyone's favorite, Tevin Jenkins, to me, had a dud of a game. We saw him get cooked twice, and to me, this was his worst game of his career. It doesn't mean he sucks. It doesn't mean that he's bad. It means you got cooked against the Packers, and you get the dud award, because it didn't look good. It wasn't fun to watch, and it really stinks when you have your most consistent and arguably your best offensive lineman that was getting beat like that against a Carl Brooks, who's a rookie, and a Wyatt, who's a second-year pro. Wyatt is a good player, but he's not elite. He's not great. He had a solid season, but not anything amazing. To me, he was my biggest dud. I felt like there was a lot of duds on that line. Like I mentioned, I thought Cody Whitehair didn't have a bad game, but he's had a lot of other bad games out there as well. And I felt too, when you don't have any backup wide receivers, that they're just playing the way that they should be playing out there is my only piece. But let's talk about who is my stud. My stud for me is I'm giving my stud to DJ Moore. And I was going to do that or Cole Kmet. I just felt like DJ Moore, he just is always out there, always giving his best, always trying his hardest. And it wasn't enough. And it's unfortunate. And the fact that the offense just basically gets fed through him. That's the thing. And the only other reason why I wanted to give the stud also to maybe Cole Kmet, I'll give him honorable mention, is you could tell that he is banged up, that his knee is not right, but he's still out there because he knows he's a Bears fan. He understands how much this game means to him. And just seeing him anytime he got hit, it was like after every play, he was banged up, but he was still going out there. Hats off to Cole Kmet. Really, even though that it's like, just don't get hurt even more. But man, I respect the crap out of it. And then Dobbsy's saying stud DJ and dud the whole offensive line. Yeah, and then Broski saying, yeah, good call with Tevin Jenkins. And also, Tevin Jenkins needs to go. Nate Davis needs to go. Bears need to draft sign 3 interior linemen. Zach Frazier, that's a good call out of West Virginia, is the center I want for the Bears. There's a lot of good centers. Or a lot of solid centers, right? I think that they can definitely get some more out there. But I will actually talk a little bit about Tevin Jenkins. He has 1 year left. I think that that's a huge thing because there's a huge question mark on him because you see the top level play, but then he's banged up. He's got the back injuries. He's got stuff. And he's a fan favorite of most fans. I guess, Broski, you don't like him. but he is a fan favorite. But what do you pay someone? And it's the whole Patriots way. The Patriots always say the best ability is availability. And if you're not able to play, what are you going to do? Right? That's going to be a very interesting conversation that they're going to have this offseason. And I don't think that Poles is going to be jumping at the bit to pay him anytime soon, to be honest. I really don't think so. But yeah, and Cole and more, just keep doing your thing. And I hate that these things all started being very repetitive with these post-game things because it's always been DJ Moore and Cole Kmet playing well. And we'll do an entire recap of how this season went, do our award show. But I just have to say, hats off to Cole Kmet, really, I posted this out. I think he was top 5 in separation for a tight end. And, amongst tight ends and wide receivers, he's played very well. He blocks well, and he's really played well. But let's talk about the future, shall we? Because I kind of want to turn the page on this game. It was ugly. It was gross. And the only other thing that I'm going to say is it wasn't just Justin Fields' fault. I think that you can put blame on Getsy. And I think that this is a similar situation, a situation similar to Matt Nagy and Mitch Trubisky a little bit, where you can't blame just one person, in my opinion. I think that there's blame on both. And Tony Romo called it out, right? That there's some people that DJ Moore cuts in. He's open. You have to throw that with anticipation, and you have to get it to him. But then you see these routes that are just long developing routes, and Justin gets smacked. I think that it's a combination of both that really kind of comes into play. And the biggest difference, though, between that situation and this situation is Fields has looked better, and I've said this before, has looked better year after year after year. But when he's not sensing the pressure better, not getting the ball out on time, I didn't want to tweet this out, but against Atlanta, he had the longest time to throw. It was like 3.5. That's like, it was basically 0.5 seconds more than anybody else. He needs the time. He needs the receivers. He needs all this. And when you see other quarterbacks that just rise up to the occasion, like what Jordan Love did today, it just puts a really bad taste in your mouth. And I'm not saying here that I want to burn it down to the ground and I want Fields out and I want this out and I want everything gone, right? What I'm saying is he's not safe. And the evaluation is going to start today. And I guarantee you that what Ryan Poles is going to do is he's going to be looking at Justin Fields and say, we know what you're doing. We have your tape. And we're going to see if there's anybody else better and see if we can move on and see if we can upgrade and see what we can do. Because if they don't like the quarterbacks in the draft, they're not going to draft them. They're going to get that haul. So I think it's going to be very interesting. But I'm curious for everyone out there, what would you do specifically with Fields? Would you move on? Would you do what I just did and kind of play it safe and say, we're just going to see what we could get for that first pick and review some of the draft picks? Because I think it's going to be Fields, when you see him like this, you wish you could just get riled up. Like that, I think that's the thing that bugs me when I watch a game like this is we watch the game with so much passion. Like when I watch a normal game, I enjoy it. I have fun with it. I'm a normal fan. But when we play the Packers, the heart rate goes up. I don't know how much longer I can watch these games because my heart rate just goes crazy. That's the hard part. I want him to play with this vibe, this fire, this passion. So it's going to be crazy. It's going to be very, very, very interesting. So let's see. Let me see what you all end up saying. Justin, Broski's saying it's always been the case with Justin. He hasn't learned pocket awareness. I do agree with that. Sergio saying, wonder if Sweat was hurt today. Yeah, Sweat did not look like Sweat today for sure. But yeah. And then the ghost of Joe Tribe. Wow, it's good to see a non-Justin sexual. Excellent. Love is and then Broski's saying Love is a better quarterback right now than Fields will ever be. Love is way better than Fields. Love is a real quarterback. Fields is a gimmick. I will say this about Fields. The offense, they tried it the first 3 weeks. They tried running the football. They didn't try running the football in the first 3 weeks. And what you saw is the offense suffered. And then what you saw afterwards was they incorporated more of the running game. That's where the biggest question is that pocket presence, like what Broski brought up. You have to win from the pocket. When people bring up Lamar Jackson can win from the pocket, right? He just has amazing wheels, and he uses it a lot more than a normal quarterback would. So that's my biggest question mark. Also, yeah, thank you. 46 watching, hit the thumbs up, my man. Thank you so much. But yeah, let's go into this, right? Let's start talking about what the heck is next, shall we? So, Ryan Poles, what are we going to do? What is he going to do? Is he going to act robotic? Is he going to act emotionally? I say this, I love saying this. Ryan Poles is a robot. He's not, is he going to be frustrated with this? I think he holds this game with a little bit more weight, but I don't think it's going to necessarily sway his decision. I think that what he's ultimately going to do is he's going to still enact his plan. This guy is an analytical guy. He's going to, first off, see, okay, Justin Fields, how have you done this season? Can we win with you? Can we move on with you? What can we do with you? And then I think that Ryan Poles is going to say, what can we get for this first round pick? What is out there? Also, what are the quarterbacks like this season in this draft? Because a lot of people are saying there's a quote-unquote generational, he's not generational, Caleb Williams. He has insane arm talent, and he's an elite prospect. I wouldn't call him generational because Andrew Luck was generational the way that he was, or Trevor Lawrence was, right? He's a very, very good prospect. But don't sleep on Drake May. Drake May, I still have to go through some of the tape. Drake May, very smart quarterback. I personally would love if they traded back, got a haul, and still picked up Drake May if they really wanted to move on from quarterbacks. Would they do that? If they did, Ryan Poles would have the biggest balls in the business. I'll tell you that much right now. But with the Bears, we're going to see a lot tomorrow because tomorrow is Black Monday, which means that people are getting fired, which means we will get a better sense of where Ryan Poles is going to want to take this team. Because if Ryan Poles fires Matt Eberflus, you can pretty much say that hasta la vista to Justin Fields. And the reason behind that is because if you had to hire a new offensive coach, and yet again, keep in mind, the Bears went from Lovie Smith, defensive mind, to the offense, which was the guy from Canada, which I blocked at Mark Trestman. And then they went from John Fox, which was defense, to Matt Nagy, which is offense, to Eberflus, which is defense. And so the trend is you go offense, or I guess Jim Harbaugh, because a lot of people want to put his name out there. I don't think so, but we'll see. If you can get any offensive mind that you want that person to choose their quarterback. It's going to be very telling what they do on Monday because that's going to be the decision that goes throughout all of this. And something that I also am a little bit interested to see is what do they do or if they make any change. Because Luke Getsy, if you fire Getsy, do you really want a new offensive coordinator with Fields? Do you want a new scheme for Fields? Because I don't really think you're going to have that. Also, what offensive coordinator wants to come into a situation? What good offensive coordinator wants to come into this situation knowing that if the Bears are bad next year, you're thrown out with the bathwater, right? Do you just promote Andrew Janocko, the quarterback's coach? Do you bring in someone who just really needs to prove themselves, like a Greg Roman? It's going to be interesting. And I hate saying, I heard Kyle Brandt saying the thing you never want to say is it's going to be interesting, but it will be. That's why we're going to have you covered on Monday. I'm going to be breaking it down. Whatever happens, we'll have a video out for you. And I got to go through some of these comments. This is the worst part about doing a show solo. I have no producer, so I am purely having to read through a lot of this stuff, and I'm trying to hear. I love that we got all this stuff going. And Corey Smith, thank you, my friend. $5 super chat. Do you believe Poles and Warren have the chops to move on from this coaching staff and draft a QB? Excellent question, and thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate that. With Warren strikes me as a guy that's all business. Like, you see him walk in the room, I feel like he'd be friendly, but if you mess up, he's just gonna look at you. He's just gonna look at you, and he's gonna have he seems so smart. He seems determined. He seems like he wants to build a winner. And I think with bringing in Warren, no longer having, the Ted Phillips, I'm hoping that they can bring in a winner. I think it actually has less to do, though, with Poles and Warren, but more about the McCaskies, and are they going to let them choose the coaching staff and do what they want to do? Because every time that you hear something happens, it's always the McCaskies that kind of like weasel their way into something and end up doing something bad, where they're like, hey, let's bring in Bill Polian. And it's like, yeah, this guy who just got lucky and drafted Peyton Manning, and then everything else just got better, right? So I do believe in Ryan Poles, especially. I believe in Ryan Poles in the draft. Free agency, I have a question mark still, but I believe him in the draft. And I think that Kevin Warren is a smart person. So that's why I'm going to go with yes for this. So also, and of course, we have a Packer fan out here. Get out of here. Get out of here. No, congratulations. I gotta hand it to you guys. You did play well. But like we said, we saw a quarterback for the Packers play better and elevate this team. And that's where I think we need to go. And I want to have a team that we have a quarterback that can elevate the team. I want to see that. It's been so long. My daughter was even yelling at the TV too, because I just was like frustrated. And she's like, why do they keep letting up yards, Dad? And I'm like, well, we're Bears fans. This is the way things are. Broski, I'm trying my hardest. I can't keep up with all these comments, man. Here, let me see. I'll try and get through it. Bears begin and end the season with disgusting losses to the Fudgies. Yeah, gross. Justin auditioned for the Falcons last week. He's as good as gone to Atlanta. That's actually a fair question. That's a fair point. I think Atlanta is a good landing spot for him. And you look at all the talent that they have around at Atlanta, right? They don't have a number one wide receiver everywhere you go, but that is his home. That truly is his home. Chris saying Lamar took a few years to be able to win from the pocket. Love had the benefit of sitting a couple of years. Just saying, Fields will get it, right? I hope so. And Sergio Jenkins did not have a good game today. Poles didn't draft Buston. Also, I really think Poles and Fields came to agreement to trade him weeks ago. Yeah, that's a bold take. I know that Greg Gabriel, he's very adamant that the Bears are going to be trading the pick down. So that's going to be something to at least watch out for. But Ghost of Judah Tribe, he let Roquan go, and he's sure letting this bum QB go. And then Broski saying, Brad, what are the chances that Bears draft another quarterback who wore 10 at UNC? LOL, really? Yeah, that's the hardest part, is because there is something to helmet scouting, I will say. I will say, when you see helmet scouting and you see a player and you're like, this is another quarterback wearing 10 from UNC, but I will say he goes through his progressions a lot better, and he's a smarter player than what Trubisky did. Trubisky was really, you saw what he did with the offense, where he would look one way, throw it to him, and people really liked that arm talent. So that's what people wanted to get, is they wanted to get that arm talent, and what else could that guy do? So that was, I hope he doesn't look like a Mitch Trubisky. He is mobile like Trubisky, which is good. But yeah, I still got to break this down a lot more for sure. But yeah, you guys did great with the comments, like you guys were joking about. I got to go through and read these. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure, and I'll actually mention this as well, just for those that are kind of jumping on in. Oh yeah, I forgot to break down this. So I mentioned this before earlier on. We will be breaking down the draft. I have I'm starting to put together the draft guide, which has all the different wide receiver rankings, kind of where they're at. For those that are watching on YouTube, it's still, as you can see with this one, just a little work in progress, but we will have something out there. I'm thinking next, let's preview the quarterbacks. How about that? Let's preview the quarterbacks next. I think that's what we all kind of want to do. But man, I gotta get some shut-eye. I have a sick kid with a fever that has been keeping me up. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much. Make sure to drop a like. Make sure to subscribe. Leave some comments down below. What do you think that the Bears are going to do? And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice